Good morning, everyone. I'm Karina Surgeon, and this is Greg Barker. We're a part of the Dynamics Fast Track team here at Microsoft. We're going to talk a little bit about citizen development today. Is our slides not?
Yeah, you got to click this one.
This one?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about citizen developer adoption using the Power Platform. So what is a citizen developer? It's someone who doesn't work in your IT department. It's some business person who's building apps within your organization. So the citizen developer evolution, back in the day we had Excel spreadsheets, we had Access databases all over the place, and they were disparate. There was no way for IT to keep track of what was going on, and they would come to the IT department and be like, this is mission critical, I have this database, we need you guys to scale it. And that's really difficult to do, right? So you had to come up with a way to get that. So now we have the Power Platform. So we can build Power Apps, we can build Flow really easily, and we can allow the citizen developers to do that, and we can administer it for them. So it's all built on the common data service and has very easy to connect data connectors. So there's kind of three different tiers of applications. So we've got, the critical applications that are supported and owned by IT. They need a robust ALM process so that we can track them throughout that whole process. We can make sure that we're testing them, that we're putting them in source control, all of those types of things. And then we've got important tiered applications. So maybe the citizen developer is developing those, but they're blessed by IT. IT is taking care of them from an ALM perspective. They understand what's being done. The request was put through to them, and then they're operating in their own environment. And then we've got productivity. So productivity is maybe built by a citizen developer who, it's a very quick little application that maybe it's only going to have a few users. They're going to build it really quickly and deploy it out. So these are kind of the two different types of personas. So we have the citizen developer. So the citizen developer, we want to enable them to have a low barrier for app development. We want to make it really easy for them to get in and develop an app and be able to deploy that out in a very quick time frame. And then we've got the pro dev IT productivity. So we've got app dev in our IT department that's building very robust applications, but they can all work within the same platform.
So I know half the room is probably going, wow, Karina, that is fantastic. This is great. I get to have the ability to create all these apps and unleash all this stuff to my business. The other half of the room is going, oh my God, Karina, that scares the crap out of me. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to protect my infrastructure while I've got all these apps out there. Many of us have probably experienced that mission critical application that's running in Access, that's sitting under someone's desk, that all of a sudden on a late Friday afternoon stops working. Nobody knows where the app lives. Nobody knows how to recover it. Nobody knows how to even figure out where the box that it's running on is sitting. And it's late Friday afternoon and payroll can't be processed because it's a mission critical app that the accounting team has built to process commissions running on Access. So we've thought about that as we've developed this Power Platform, and how do we give citizen developers the same power that they have with Access, Excel, and some of the other tools that are traditionally available, and still make it something that the IT teams can support and maintain. And so we've got some of these sample scenarios that I'm sure all of these questions have come up, as you've thought about how you deploy Power Apps and some of these other tools, right? And those of you that may have seen the keynote from James Phillips yesterday, Ryan came on stage and he demoed how we've solved this problem. And it's really, really simple. It was a one-click demo. And what it was is you log in to the application. All of these mission critical apps now live in the cloud, are all now behind a user login, are all now protected by the entire platform that we have. So as we look at all of these things, the data security concerns, we don't have corporate data sitting on an unprotected server under someone's desk. It now lives in the cloud where it can be monitored and maintained. We don't have ALM support issues, right? You've got this rogue application. Nobody knows where the source code lives. Nobody knows how to create it again. Nobody knows how to scale it. All of that all now lives in the cloud with our no-cliff platform, so that if you do build something and you want to expand it more and more and more, you can go right from Power Apps to Logic Apps and into model-driven apps within Dynamics, and continue to scale this up at the enterprise level based on somebody's vision of what used to be an Access database. So we've got all of that covered. And the way that we are empowering our companies to go and do this is we've thought a lot about the questions that come up and have built a Center of Excellence starter kit. So we understand that it's new. So we decided that we'd put together some things for you, some common problems that come to our attention. DLP, how do I prevent data that is sitting in these applications from going out to the world that is somehow protected? We can now stuff that behind the DLP strategy that's inside of Office 365 because it all lives in the cloud, right? The next thing is, how do we monitor what's doing, right? We've got all these developers that are out there. How do I know what apps are being created? How do I know what my business users are doing? So we put in some tools to allow you to monitor that. We have auditing and action so you can see what's happening within those applications, because you want to empower your citizen developers to go out and solve the real world business challenges that they've been faced with. And who knows, next year you guys could be on stage at the keynote having some business application user that's created a process that improves their productivity to 90%, like was mentioned with the French Railroad. So you want to be able to do this, but you have to be able to control it. And the Power Platform allows you to do that. So a couple other things that we'll just talk about a little bit inside of that starter kit. We've got a model-driven app that you can install into your Dynamics 365 environment and begin to monitor all of the things that are happening within your organization. So you know exactly what users are doing what, and you can control which users are doing what. And then you can control the flow of that application out to your organization and really be successful within that Power Apps platform. Does that make sense? Yeah? We talked a little bit about DLP. DLP is super important, right? I've got all these mission critical apps. We've got 200 plus connectors that allow you to connect to data throughout the environment in all kinds of unique ways. What you don't want is your financial data to be sitting on someone's phone and not be able to know that that data is protected, right? Or your personal company IP, or all these other trade secrets that are out there. So the DLP policy allows you to define what applications can share information together, so that you don't have to worry about that. It's no longer 15 spreadsheets sitting on a laptop that gets left at airport security that contain your entire business information for someone to go look at or do something harmful with, right? It's all protected now within the Power Platform. Any questions about how that works? Everybody familiar with the DLP platform within Dynamics? Yeah? We've also put in a Power BI dashboard, and I think this was shown in one of the keynotes, where you can see exactly what's happening, what apps are being used and where, right within that starter kit. You don't have to go build all this. We've taken all of that work out of the thought process for you, so you can just go to the starter kit and download it and be ready to go right out of the gate. DLP, monitoring, alerting, all of those pieces that are sitting there at your disposal so that you can be successful from day one. Has anyone built a Power App in here? Yeah? Fantastic. Any business users that have built a Power App? No? Okay.
In the back.
Okay. Fantastic. So as we think about the governance and the administration, there's a couple of links, and you guys will have access to this deck, so you can go visit that. But one of the ones that's really interesting, I think, is the app in a day concept, right? In traditional development, you have business sponsor that comes to the IT department with a problem, and you spend a couple of weeks or a couple of months defining what that solution looks like. You get all kinds of developers lined up, you get your dev environment, you start writing some code, you go through this very iterative process to make sure that you're delivering what they want, you figure out where it's hosted, how you're going to manage it, all of those kinds of things. App in a day, we actually ask customers to come to that meeting with a problem. And I had a customer that we did this with, and they are in a retail environment and they wanted to have a check-in experience through their platform but they wanted it to be something that their retail staff could actually use and maintain and be successful with. That it was really task-driven, task-oriented platform. And so within a day, they came to us with this problem. We built this application. We connected it to their external data source so that they could use their customer master that was there for their millions of customers to look up customers, drive all this information. Because it was within Power Apps, we were able to take all of that data, all of the check-in process, and store it right back into their transactional system, all with a Power App. And it was literally built in a day. Unbelievable. And our team will come and help you guys do that, and there's all sorts of tutorials and examples and so forth. So when you think about developing in Power Apps, it is something that is very, very different than most developers are used to in the past. And that's why we think it's so important for citizen developers, because they're the ones that are closest to the problem. They understand what it's going to take to get there, and you can really go to market with apps in record time and be super productive almost instantaneously with all that security that we've talked about. So you do need to think about what you're going to deliver. You do need to think about your environments, but within that starter kit, it talks to you about how you would provision environments, and there's a flow that you can have people request an environment, and you can approve an environment for them to do it. You think about, DLP and auditing and all those kinds of things that we do traditionally, but it's all contained within that starter kit, and it's a policy that you set up, and then you can just turn it on to your developers. Make sense? Questions? Anybody think I'm crazy? I wore my Superman socks today. I was ready for all the stuff. Yes, sir.
So in some of those keynotes that my Jim had, they're talking about, oh, we have thousands of apps, right, and all these things, which is wonderful. How does that work in terms of cost?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I'll repeat it. So the question was, in some of the keynotes, they've heard about the thousands of apps that customers have, right? So, and how does that work in terms of cost? So I don't want today to be a licensing discussion because I'll get in trouble because I don't have all the details. But the good news is that the way that it gets licensed is it's licensed per user. You can create 100,000 apps and you pay for the usage per user, and then I think there's a data cost in there as well in terms of the amount of data that you're storing, but you're not paying for per app. You're paying who has access to that app.
Yeah, so the P2 license will give you unlimited apps. The P1 allows you only 2 apps in a portal, but the P2 license will give you unlimited apps.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yeah, so the question was about support. So now I've got all these citizen developers that are creating all these apps. How does the IT team support them? Well, so the good news is those apps are easy to see where they're at because they're all in the Power Platform, and you can look at them and you can maintain the connections and all those things. It is somewhat of a business decision about how that support works, right? So if the sales team creates a Power App and they've got all this functionality and they've done it outside of the IT department, and now they say, we want you to support it, you're going to have that conversation, okay, about what does it need, what's the criticality of the application, what is the usage type, who's going to maintain it, how do we do versioning, all those kinds of things. And that becomes a conversation that every customer is going to have. But it is a very important question because, software is never done. I've learned that after, 20 plus years doing software. It is important that you're going to have to maintain that version. And so as you go through this process with your business users, you should have that conversation up front. Okay, so you built this. Who's going to do V2 and V3 and V4? And what happens when the backend data system changes? Who's going to maintain that? It becomes a simple conversation if you have it up front and just define those roles in those scenarios. Most of the time, though, it will fall back on the IT team to manage that sort of more technical stuff, right? Like the backend data system changes. You're going to have to connect to one of our 200 plus connectors to now repoint to the other thing. The good news is, in the Power Platform, it's like drag and drop. It's super easy. There's no bunch of code that has to be written or any of that. You just say, this used to be the database and those used to be the fields. Now this is the database and those are the fields, and you connect it back up together. But it is a conversation to have, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be different for every business case.
Right.
So I think, yeah, within your organization, you have to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So other questions before we move on to the next thing? You guys are awesome. We're all going to have power apps from every single one of you next year, right?
Yeah.
I'll have the team call you and we'll get you guys up on stage. You all set. So a couple things that I just wanted to talk about. Learnings. It's all about this community, right? Within your organization, you build this community of people that are trying to solve real world business challenges. But it's super important that if you think about what Satya said in his keynote, that there's going to be 500 million of these apps. There's no way that every organization's IT department can build 500 million apps in the next 3 years. You are going to have this organic growth with your citizen developers. It's important to embrace that. It's important to get in front of that and start having the conversations with them now so that you can talk about how to be successful. So you can talk about some of the things that we've set up with the governance and the DLP policies and all those things, and give them the guardrails for them to be successful, knowing that you've got the power of the Power Platform behind you, and all the security and all of the things that are out there, right?
And to your point earlier, the business users know what they need, so you're not gathering requirements,
Right.
and taking them back to IT, trying to translate them and build an app, go back to the business. They can kind of look at that and they can adjust it as they need for their business situation.
Right, exactly. I mean, one of the things that's really, really helped us, grow in this space is this concept of community. And James talked about a little bit in his keynote about how big this community is, and it really is how we've been successful. The Power App Platform allows you to do that within your own organization, to build that community so that people can share ideas and success stories and talk about things that they're building, because you don't want to do this in silos. You don't want the accounting team and the marketing team building an app that does the exact same thing. You want to put that structure in place so that you can bring them together and talk about the types of things that would be helpful for them, and have a strategy around how you go to market and build those things. And then keep it going, right? I mean, this is not a one and done thing. We see this all the time. Another retail customer of mine, they decided they were going to go down this Power Apps platform. They bought the licenses, they were going. They got ready to deploy their first app, and they realized that there was already 10 apps that had been created by citizen developers. And they've realized that they were a little bit behind the curve on getting that information out there. And so they put this plan in place, and some of the things that they were planning to build, their people in the field had already solved the problem with Power Apps and were already up and going. And they just got to pull that right off the stack. So bring those people together, bring that community together so that they can share ideas and make it a very collaborative conversation to talk about how you go solve, the very tactical business challenges that your users are facing every single day. Questions, thoughts, comments? Our next slide is questions. Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, do you have any idea for the learning curve for the users?
So it's an excellent question, what the learning curve is for the users. The great thing about Power Apps and the Power Platform is we've designed it so that it's familiar, right? The way that you build a Power App feels very much the way that you would build a PowerPoint presentation. The way that you do, very technical things to get data and some of those other things feels very much like creating a formula inside of Excel. So these tools are designed to work the way that users are already used to working, and be able to, combine multiple data sets, be able to do very, great lists and views and all kinds of things in things that feel very, very familiar to them. So we find that the learning curve is almost zero. They log in, it seems familiar, the toolbars look almost the same, they understand drag and drop, they understand, doing sort of Excel style formulas that have IntelliSense, so you can figure out what you're looking for, and a very rich editor that most of what you want to do is drag and drop. So the learning curve we see is very, very low. Yes, sir.
Developers primarily individual contributors, or do you see them forming with small teams?
Yeah, okay.
How does Agile or Scrum fit into
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, and I think that we see a mix of both, right?
What's the question?
The question is, do we see these citizen developers as an individual developer, or is it a small group of developers that come together? And how does some of the traditional software development management practices like Agile or Scrum come into place? And I think we see a little bit of a mix, right? So there's certainly some individual developers that will go in and solve a business process that they're used to, and then they deploy it out and share with their friends and collaborate on what that idea is. And we also see, the sort of mix of that where there are development teams that are building an application, and there's this developer working on this part and this developer working on that part, and they need to bring those together and have a real defined ALM strategy so that they can work collaboratively with each other in a very iterative process. The Power Platform allows both, and it's solution aware, so you can actually build your solution in a dev environment, promote it up the stack to QA and eventually to prod. You can share that code across with multiple teams and be able to work that way collaboratively. So we see both is the answer. Questions? Any more questions? Yes, sir.
So how does it work, and this might piggyback on this question about, let's say for example I have a sales CRM, the Dynamics is also a common data model, right? And then they want to build a Power App that utilizes that, but they need to create another entity and some more fields, but I don't want to give them creation capabilities inside of the
Right.
system because maybe they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
That's like a whole separate instance, but they need the CRM data inside of it. And
Right.
then do I just have to spin up another sandbox, or is there like they have their own just kind of separate Power App CDM instance that kind of takes some of this? How does that kind of?
All right. So the question was, so I've got, and I'll try to paraphrase what he's said, but the question is, so I've got a developer that wants to build a Power App on top of my Dynamics 365 app Sales Hub, but they want to create a new entity or add fields and all those kinds of things, and I don't want to give them, customizer or admin role inside of my CE dev environment. How do I manage that? So it becomes sort of this collaborative effort is one way. You could have your teams come to you and say, I want to build a Power App, but I want the pro devs to build this piece that I connect to. And I think James alluded to this some in his keynote, it might have been Ryan, where we have this collaboration between the citizen developer and the pro devs so that the pro devs can build the infrastructure that the citizen developers can take advantage. Build APIs, build the data model, build all those things and let them take advantage of it. That's one way you can handle it. The other way that you can handle it, because it is solution aware, is you could, with our new licensing model, the number of instances doesn't matter, it's based on the amount of storage, you could build them a separate sandbox, let them have their own environment, build everything solution aware, and run that through your traditional dev process. So you can have a code review and a check-in process, build that through your build automation, and deploy that up the stack. But it depends on what you're comfortable with. Either way works perfectly fine.
So
Sandbox doesn't. I could have 20 sandboxes, but so long as I'm not exceeding my space, that's fine.
right. As long
Your
as you have a
individual
given
licensing,
space.
sorry,
Yeah,
your
well,
individual licensing EA depends on the renewal and a bunch of other things of where you sit in that, but that is the direction going forward, is that it's not by instance, it's by storage.
Yeah, when you're on capacity licensing,
Yeah.
that's how it will be for you.
Yep.
So as long as you have a gig free of space, then you'll be able to spin up another instance.
Correct.
But to Greg's point, if you haven't gone through renewal and you're not on that capacity-based licensing yet, then you're on the old model. So you just have to look at that.
Right. April of this year, right?
Forget when it.
I think it was like
Yeah,
April,
April.
but it depends on your renewal and
Yeah,
when you
it's
get
when
into
you
that.
renew.
So each customer in this room is going to be a little bit different. Yes, sir.
Every environment you create, if you choose this option, has its own CDS.
Mm-hmm.
So you've created the concept of solutions to be able to package Power Apps and flows together and move them from environment to environment. So if you're in a situation where you have a Power App with flow and you are utilizing the CDS and you create new entities in that CDS, is that also in turn packaged with that solution? solutions. So when you export that and import that into a new environment, those entities are automatically created in the new CDS in the other environment.
Yes.
Yeah. So the question was, so I've got all these CDS environments and I've got all this dev that's happening, and I'm creating entities and metadata and flows and Canvas apps and model apps and all those other things within that environment. When I move that to the next environment, does all of that stuff come with it? And the answer is yes. It's all solution aware, and you can deploy that hopefully through an automated ALM process using VSTS and some of our Azure DevOps tools. You can promote all of that up to the next environment and to the next environment, including data. So if you've got configuration data and some of that stuff, you can package all of that stuff up and promote it up the stack in each thing with all of your stuff embedded inside of it.
But I think you want to think about data management so that you don't have crossover, right?
Right.
So if they're adding fields, like for example, to the account entity, you want to make sure that field doesn't already exist, you're not duplicating it. So I think it helps to have a strategy at the IT level to look at those solutions when they're pulling them in, just to make sure there isn't any overlap in those data elements.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And that's where that sort of collaboration community comes together. You don't want to be building, address 25 on the account record when address 25 already exists, because two other teams have created address 21 through 25 already, right? So
Yep.
we got a couple more minutes left. Any more questions that we can answer for you? All right, who's ready? Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry?
Would you recommend the same strategy for someone in the GCC? I mean, you're talking about citizen developers.
Mhm.
And this came out, Microsoft said, privacy flows available. And then I'm seeing model-driven apps, I'm seeing Canvas apps across the board, in a government entity.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your recommendation as far as governments and that kind of thing? I know you just mentioned spinning up an instance or an environment for an agency to work in. Is that what you recommend?
Yeah, so the question was, what's our recommendation in our sovereign clouds, like the government cloud or some of the other sovereign clouds? Do we have the same recommendation around security and maintaining environments and so forth? And the simple answer is yes, we do. It's the exact same strategy. It's going to depend on what that agency is comfortable with and what they're doing. I do have a very large government agency that is now going down the Power Platform path to build a Power App for their folks to be out in the community looking at different things. And they're going to build that outside of their traditional IT arm because they understand the business and they understand the challenge that they're trying to solve. And it's simple enough to do with the data that already exists from the app that was created inside of Dynamics. Now, not all government agencies created equally, right? Some are going to say no, and you'll have to work through some of that. But the good news is, this is not like it used to be, right? This is all sitting in the cloud, protected behind DLP and logins and all those other things, and it becomes a much easier conversation because all of that security stuff that they're concerned about, all of the things that make that a protected cloud still exist. Because it's not a spreadsheet on somebody's laptop that could be left at an airport somewhere. This is sitting in the cloud, protected behind logins and all of the richness that we've built in the Power Platform. So, like I said, our answer is yes, it's the same. Questions? All right, who's on stage next year with their brand new Power App? All right, well, thank you so much for coming, and if you have any questions, let us know. We're over here at the Fast Track booth for Dynamics 365. We're happy to continue the conversation, answer any questions you like. But thank you for coming.